Finally, I can see a tribe of Kiwis. Finally, get off your knees and live the last days on your feet. Finally. On the 30th of September 2020, a witness statement from Noam Chomsky was read into the record of the UK hearing of a US extradition request for Julian Assange. The judge would not permit the witness to take the stand and speak for himself, ostensibly to save time. This is a reading of his written statement. It begins by stating his long working history in academia and his even longer list of honorary degrees, memberships and prizes. Then follows an extensive list of Professor Chomsky's published works. By way of preamble, Professor Chomsky says, "I have been asked whether Julian Assange's work and actions can be considered as political, a question I am informed is of significance to the extradition request by the United States for Mr Assange to be tried for espionage for having played a part in the publication of information that the United States government did not wish to be publicly known. I have previously spoken of the subject matter in which I am asked now to comment in relation to Mr Assange. The following paragraphs constitute my views. I confirm my assessment that Mr Assange's opinions and actions should be understood in their relationship to the priorities of government." A professor of the science of government at Harvard University, the distinguished liberal political scientist and government advisor Samuel Huntington observed that the architects of power in the United States must create a force that can be felt but not seen. Power remains strong when it remains in the dark. Exposed to the sunlight, it begins to evaporate. He gave some telling examples concerning the real nature of the Cold War. He was discussing US military intervention abroad, and he observed that you may have to sell intervention or other military action in such a way as to create the misimpression that it is a Soviet Union that you're fighting. That's what the United States has been doing ever since the Truman Doctrine, and there are many illustrations of that leading principle. Julian Assange's actions, which have been categorized as criminal, are actions that expose power to sunlight. Actions that may cause power to evaporate if the population grasps the opportunity to become independent citizens of a free society rather than subjects of a master who operates in secret. That is a choice, and it's long been understood that the public can cause power to evaporate. The one leading thinker who understood and explained this critical fact was David Hume, writing on the first principles of government in one of the first modern works of political theory over 250 years ago. His formulation was so clear and pertinent that I'll simply quote it. Hume found nothing more surprising than to see the easiness with which the many are governed by the few, and to observe the implicit submission with which men resigned their own sentiments and passions to those of their rulers. When we inquire by what means this wonder is brought about, we shall find that as force is always on the side of the governed, the governors have nothing to support them but opinion. It is therefore an opinion only that government is founded, and this maxim extends to the most despotic and most military governments as well as to the most free and the most popular. Actually, Hume underestimates the efficacy of violence, but his words are particularly appropriate to societies where popular struggle over many years has won a considerable degree of freedom. In such societies, such as ours of course, power really is on the side of the governed, and the governors have nothing to support them but opinion. That is one reason why the huge public relations industry is the most immense propaganda agency in human history, a reach that's developed and reached its most sophisticated forms in the most free societies, the United States and Britain. That institution arose about 1 century ago when elites came to understand that too much freedom had been won for the public to be controlled by force, so it would be necessary to control attitudes and opinions. Liberal intellectual elites understood that as well, which is why they urged, to give a few quotes, that we must discard democratic dogmatisms about people being the best judges of their own interests. They are not. They are ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, and therefore must be put in their place so as not to disturb the responsible men who rule by right. One device to control the population is to operate in secret so that the ignorant and meddlesome outsiders will stay in their place, remote from the levers of power, which are none of their business. That's the main purpose for classification of internal documents. Anyone who has pored through the archives of released documents has surely come to realize pretty quickly that what is kept secret very rarely has anything at all to do with security, except for the security of the leadership from their domestic enemy, their own population. The practice is so routine that illustration is really quite superfluous. I'll mention only one contemporary case. Consider the global trade agreements, Pacific and Atlantic. In actuality, investor rights agreements masquerading under the rubric of free trade. They are negotiated in secret. There's an intention of Stalinist-style ratification by Parliament, yes or no, which of course means yes, with no discussion or debate, what's called in the United States fast track. To be accurate, they're not negotiated entirely in secret. The facts are known to the corporate lawyers and lobbyists who are writing the details in such a way as to protect the interests of the constituency that they represent, which is, of course, not the public. The public, on the contrary, is an enemy that must be kept in ignorance. Julian Assange's alleged crime in working to expose government secrets is to violate the fundamental principles of government, to lift the veil of secrecy that protects power from scrutiny, keeps it from evaporating. And again, it is well understood by the powerful that lifting the veil may cause power to evaporate. It may even lead to authentic freedom and democracy if an aroused public comes to understand that force is on the side of the governed, and it can be their force if they choose to control their own fate. In my view, Julian Assange, in courageously upholding political beliefs that most of us profess to share, has performed an enormous service to all the people in the world who treasure the values of freedom and democracy, and who therefore demand the right to know what their elected representatives are doing. His actions, in turn, have led him to be pursued in a cruel and intolerable manner. Rightio Kiwis, if you like this, press the like button, share it around to your friends, and also the links are in the video header. Oh, the gold is what we're told. Just make money, then grow old. Now the game is up, I see through it all. The banks rob us blind and let us fall. But finally, I can see a tribe of Kiwis. Finally, get off your knees, live the last days on your feet. Finally, I can see how it is, the sleight of hand. Finally, we can see if we open our eyes, the shady plan. Finally, get off your knees and live the last days on your feet. See the truth and live those last days debt free.